Hi everyone, my name is Myles McCants. I am a 26L at Emory University School of Law. After graduating this spring, I will be practicing in Midtown Atlanta at HuffPow Bailey, practicing medical malpractice. Most of the traditional methods that law students use is outlining, and usually law students bring in-depth outlines to their law school exams. These outlines usually pertain to over 50 pages and sometimes even exceeding to up to 90 pages. I realized I needed something different because of the speed of a law school exam. So I preferred something more of the nature of an attack outline or something that is just showing the analysis. The one moment that made me change my studying habits was my midterms. My midterms in fall, I believe, were something that changed how I saw law school for the first time. During that time, I had not had that much experience with IRAC yet, being that it was my first semester of law school. And so by then I realized I needed to have extra help in not only writing my answer, but also being able to articulate my answer in the application part of my exams. And after I've had experience with my midterm, I realized that the speed of not only delivering my answer, but also being able to explain my answer needed to improve. So outside from the traditional outlining method, I prefer to break up my readings to make sure I'm about a week and a half ahead of my reading schedule. So you'll have about 5 courses in the semester, and to do that with every class, you'll need some type of planner. The difference between my fall and spring semester grades was me incorporating not only Outlook, but a planner. Additionally, reaching out to outside supplements. So I realized early on that if I don't understand it in class, it's not gonna make sense if I watch the video at home either. And so I usually reach to outside supplements. So different outside supplements I use were West Academic, Quimby, Studicata. Commonly you'll see a few free videos on YouTube, but they're not as in-depth as you would like. And so usually this requires some type of payment, but there also are free resources as well that the school provides. And I believe that those resources can be found through SBA's website and sometimes even directly on the website of Emory Law itself. I would then break down my courses with a weekly review. This takes a lot of time, but it makes all the difference when exam time comes around. And usually I start my outlining, so if we're doing fall semester, I would start my outlining in like the last week of September, so I can have that cushion, because usually when people go on winter break, they always forget, or by that time you need to be done with your outlining. When it comes to dense readings, I changed my approach from fall to spring, mainly based on how I read. I believe during my fall semester, I read every little detail, and you just will not have the time to always do that. And so commonly what you want to do is to get better at issue spotting within the case. I think that's a skill that needs to be developed over time. It's a skill that's very hard to adapt to 1L year particularly, but now I approach more of my readings not only with a group study, but also usually some type of supplement where the case has been sometimes simplified, or in extreme scenarios, I will ask a friend for a summary of the case so somebody else can explain the case to me. Commonly when you have a case like, when you have a class like criminal law or constitutional law, sometimes those cases can be very long and very detailed. And so sometimes getting somebody else's perspective helps. To help you with your studies, I would recommend doing group study sessions. Commonly, students will find that if you do law school alone, it will be a lot harder for you, especially in the end. Group study sessions also help with people sharing outlines, and many people have different outlines based on different organizations they're a part of. And actually, you can also share outlines in the sense that students in your class will sometimes give you outlines. But if that doesn't work, then usually having a mentor helps. A mentor will provide you an outline, particularly a 3L mentor or a 2L mentor. Now, often enough, the teachers change, but the subject and the doctrinal material stays the same. With many students, particularly with me, I was a first-generation student, sharing outlines seemed like a practice that was not always encouraged. But you will realize once you get to law school that sharing outlines will make all the difference, and that is very common practice between students. Particularly 3Ls will give outlines to 2Ls, and 2Ls will give their outlines to 1Ls. And then you also have the time to not only realize what type of outlines you prefer, but also the outlines that you don't want to bring to the exam. For instance, if you have a 3-hour exam, you may not want to bring an 80-page outline. Now, for some students that will help if you need to, as law students say, information dump, but usually you'll need an outline that's concise enough, that's in your wording, that will help you when you get to the exam. I believe my approach works for majority learning styles. I would like to say all, but you never know who you may run into. I think the main part of my approach is just understanding what you need during the exam. So if during the exam you prefer to have paragraphs to read through and you know where to look for your paragraphs, then having a bigger outline will help you with that approach. If you're a little bit more like me, I prefer charts. I prefer hard pictures of PowerPoint slides from class, things that will give me some type of memory cue. That way it's not fully reliant on just what I wrote down in that moment. Also, usually what I do is at the end of every unit and section, I have an analysis chart with how to apply that doctrinal material. So usually it's like a steps 1 through 5 if you have a question of this nature, and then I'll have exceptions on the back page. So my performance has changed a lot over the years. I believe mainly the main jump in difference was between my fall grades and my spring semester grades, in which I actually got to apply what I realized what does work and what doesn't work. I believe that there was a large jump in more of my understanding of the material rather than only just my results, but I was able to come back to the doctrinal material and be able to explain it to other students, which I feel is the main indicator of if you understand something. And the easiest way to start doing things my way, I would recommend starting before the year starts. So 2 weeks before class, see if you can get your class syllabus, see if you can get access to your books. Now, usually that's very hard to do. Particularly law students like to wait until the second week or third week to even start reading, not only to see if they want to join the class or drop the class, but usually to see if they can keep up with the material pace. Now, when you get later to 2L and 3L year, you'll be able to choose classes that may not require a textbook, but as a 1L, I would recommend having some type of access early on to either sitting in the class or to have access to the supplemental books. So Quick and Happy Guides, I believe Aspen Publishing has a couple of different supplements as well. The Examples and Explanations book. Anything of that nature will kind of help you get a understanding of what the overview of the class looks like. And if you can see it from a broad angle from starting out, it will definitely get a lot easier towards the end. As a 1L, I would recommend staying on top of your studies is all of the difference, particularly with how important fall grades are. Imposter syndrome is real, but it's all of what you make it. Everybody doesn't understand what they're doing, but everybody needs to have a system that they trust. So I would recommend reaching out to get resources, asking the teacher for help, and making sure you stay in office hours.